Our group researched Denmark, and here's a map of Denmark. In the upper right hand corner you can see a globe, and it's positioned between Sweden and Germany, and it's a relatively small country, but the country is in stage 4 of the DTM with relatively low birth and death rates. The birth rate is 1.73 and the death rate is 3. The dependency ratio in Denmark is relatively low. It is 27 for every 100 people. And within Denmark, the number of people migrating to other locations in Denmark is pretty small, only 2.7 migrants per 1,000 citizens, and just under 10% of people are immigrants into the country. One of the major population concerns is the fact that many people are aging, and that's creating an older population. So on the population diagrams in this first one, which is in the present day, there's a high population in the working class, which is why the dependency ratio is pretty low. Although you can see at the top the population is aging slowly. And in 2030, the population has begun to age more rapidly. There's a greater population up in the older years, and there is a dent in the pyramid because the working class has actually started to decline, which would cause a higher dependency ratio. And in this last population pyramid in 2050, it's relatively equal, the working class and the younger non-working class, so that could pose a problem with the dependency ratios as well. In terms of resources, because Denmark is an MEDC, they have the 4th largest consumption rate of natural resources in the world at 70.6% of fossil fuels. Their ecological footprint is 2.7 global hectares per person, which is over the global national average of 1.8 global hectares per person. And in Denmark, that's 18 million in total. In terms of the natural resources that are present in Denmark, oil and natural gases have a large abundance in the North Sea, and they are the leading exporter for that in the region. And limestone, stone, and clay are also important natural resources in Denmark. For sustainability, Denmark works towards reaching 100% renewable energy, and that seems to be attainable because they are currently the leader in wind energy in Europe. They use wind turbines in the oceans for energy, which is supplied not only to Denmark but also to Sweden and Norway. And also, in addition to that, hydroelectric power connections from river systems in Denmark are also supplying energy to Sweden. And for development, the tertiary sector accounts for 76.8% of the economy, and therefore it is in Rostow's stage 5 because of that dominant service sector. Industry accounts for 21.7% of the economy, and 1.5% of the economy is in agriculture, specifically organic farming, because Denmark holds the highest market share in organic products in the world. And some of the core areas of Denmark, Copenhagen is the capital. In Aarhus is a port city which is in the geographic center of Denmark, and that's important. And Esbjerg is another port city for agricultural exports, specifically for the organic material that needs to be exported to other countries.
As far as the environment in Denmark is concerned, 99% of the water comes from groundwater resources, which can cause an issue with water scarcity because there are some pollutants from animal waste, pesticides, and some natural gas pollution that can lead to scarcity in the water. Regarding the air quality, the EPA and the National Center for Environmental Agency joined together to monitor the air quality. They have an air pollution system in which Denmark has to reach these limit values for sulfur oxides, nitrogen oxides, ozone, carbon monoxide, and they do so pretty well, except for they have some issues with particulates and nitrogen oxide, but again, they have the ability to monitor it and keep it as low as possible. Regarding their soil, some soil has a clay-like texture and others are more sandy, which I would assume would mean that they're drier, but it doesn't seem to have any sort of negative impact considering the fact that Denmark, as was said earlier, is a large agricultural place and they have lots of organic farming. And then the biodiversity, they're considered to be vulnerable at this point, which is not too much of a concern because there are still many other levels, as you can see on your scale on your worksheet, before anything becomes too dangerous, but they have taken steps to monitor the biodiversity and keep it really diverse. Okay, for tourism and leisure, tourism is developed in Denmark. They have hotels and cruise lines for common forms of lodging. They also have an airport in Copenhagen and established metro and railway systems. Trends in tourism, there's a peak in August where about 1.6 million tourists come in. And then the off-season, which would be in February or even like early spring, May, there's about 750,000 tourists. Tourism out of the country is about 60% during holiday season. Danes travel to mostly Spain, which is about 14%, Italy, and then other European countries. They're in about stage 5 of Butler's model, which is the stagnation stage. They have the Tivoli Gardens and Legoland and another amusement park, which I cannot pronounce. There's also the zoo and they have an aquarium. As far as ecotourism, there are 2 major spots, which is the Marguerite Route, which provides views of the natural landscape in Copenhagen, and the Damhus Lake as another tourist attraction. For sports, the main sports are soccer, handball, cycling, sailing, hockey, and swimming as the most popular, which is interesting considering that they're in the north. Those seem to be more outdoor sports for like summertime. But Denmark has actually participated in more Summer Olympics than Winter Olympics, and they've done quite well in them, especially based on their size and the number of games that they participated in, which is about 11 less than the United States. Their official soccer stadium is the Parken Stadium for their national team. They haven't been very successful at the FIFA World Cup. They are a smaller country, and they've only participated in about 4 of the 20 games and did not advance. In hazards and disasters, they have a low to no risk for tectonic hazard. Flooding seems to be the major threat to areas along the southern coast. And the floods can be human-induced to a certain extent because of the clear-cutting of vegetation, which would typically absorb the water. It is now being absorbed into the ground and causes flooding. Also, the construction of concrete buildings, they don't absorb the water as well as the sand and soil would, which can also cause flooding. And then there's a minor threat of drought in some of the areas. So overall, they have a low vulnerability in Denmark because of their location away from the fault lines, and they have really established, efficient warning systems. There's the Danish Emergency Management Agency, which designs emergency plans during hazardous times, and there are also local and regional support centers, and they also have strong early warning systems which were implemented. And here's a seismic hazard map where you can see that they don't really have a risk there in kind of the greenish blue section, which says low risk.